Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I'm glad to hear it. You should feel that way because Claire Wahmanholm is here and she's going to read us poems. So that is the right response. It is such a pleasure to be hosting Claire Wahmanholm here today, and then actually this whole week on campus. She is this year's Tamas Day Poet in Residence, and we're extremely fortunate to have her on campus for the entirety of the week. As part of her time here at Smith, not only will she be doing this reading for us, obviously, tonight, Claire will be visiting Lily Gerton-Wachter's Eco-Poetics class tomorrow morning. She'll be offering a generative workshop at the McLeish Field Station. And because she is so intrepid, just this morning she visited the 6th grade class at the campus school. And she was greeted there at the door with a rainbow-colored sign that read, "Welcome, Poetess Claire." Which is, I mean, every poet aspires to that moment where they're called poetess. It's what we're in the business for. So it was wonderful to see. She went on to do a deep dive with them into alliteration and also talked about form in poetry as sport, which I really love too. So here's the way tonight will work. Claire will be introduced by Jen Blackburn, and then following Claire's reading, she'll be in conversation with Jen on stage, and then after the two of them have their conversation together, Claire will be right down here at the purple tablecloth, very happily signing books. I want to thank our co-sponsors for tonight's event. That is Seeds, the Center for the Environment, Ecological Design, and Sustainability, and also Arts Afield, which facilitates collaborative work between the arts and humanities at the McLeish Field Station. I want to thank Roz, as always, for signing collection Meltwater. I really encourage you all to take a look, if you didn't pick up a book on the way in, to head to the broadside table after the reading. As always, I want to thank Tom Kleitis for streaming tonight's event, and thank you to all who have joined us here online. And then just looking ahead, I wanted to let you all know that our next event in our spring reading series will be with Yeli Kamara, who will be reading here on April 7th, so 2 weeks from tonight, same time, same place. English 112, you know what to do. The QR codes will be posted at the end of the night. Please remember to scan in for your attendance. If you have any issues at all, come up and see me afterwards too, or find Nicole. And just thank you all again for coming out this evening. It's really wonderful to have this turnout, and really excited for this audience tonight. And it is now my pleasure to introduce my fabulous colleague from the Poetry Center, Jen Blackburn. So Jen Jabaily-Blackburn is the author of the wonderful full-length collection Girl in a Bear Suit from Elixir Press 2024 and the e-chapbook Disambiguation. She is the winner of the Louisa Solana Memorial Emerging Poet Award from Salamander, which was selected by Stephanie Burt. Her recent work has appeared in or is coming soon from Indianapolis Review, the Lily Poetry Review, Swamp Pink, Villain Era, The Common, and On the Seawall. Originally from the Boston area, she now lives in Western Mass with her family. In 2024, she joined the advisory board of Perugia Press, and she is an associate editor of Nine Syllables Press, Smith College's own poetry press, housed right here, where she is the program and outreach coordinator for the Boutelle-Day Poetry Center. Just a few additional things to add to Jen's official biography. Jen does not mess around when it comes to her love of North London's Arsenal Football Club or the chance to give a passing beagle a scratch behind the ears. And I've said it before, and I'll never get tired of saying it. In 2015, Jen was not only a contestant on Jeopardy, but she utterly crushed it and won the episode. So there, please welcome Jen Jabaily-Blackburn.
Oh man. Thanks, Matt. I don't know if I'm going to live up to that, but I'll do my best. Yeah, I am. I was actually late once to one of these readings because I stopped to scratch not a beagle, a basset hound this time with Merwin, W.S. Merwin. Like top 5 experiences of my life. So is this good? Can you hear me okay? All right. So thanks for joining us tonight. I'm going to start us off with a quick bio of Claire. So tonight's poet, Claire Wahmanholm, received her BA from UW-Madison, her MFA from the Writing Seminars at the Johns Hopkins University, PhD from the University of Utah. Her debut collection, Wilder, won the 2018 Lindquist and Benham Prize for Poetry, the Society of Midland Authors Award for Poetry, and was a finalist for the 2019 Minnesota Book Award. Her second collection, Redmouth, was published with Tinderbox Editions in 2019. Her third collection, Meltwater, was a finalist for the 2024 Minnesota Book Award and the 2024 Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award, and was also a 2025 National Book Foundation Science and Literature selection. She was a 2020 to 2021 McKnight Writing Fellow and the winner of the 2022 Montreal International Poetry Prize for her poem Glacier. She lives in the Twin Cities, and we're delighted to have her with us as this year's Tamis Day Poet in Residence. So I'm sure a good number of you are here because you're already familiar with Claire Wahmanholm's outstanding work, and I am excited for you. But I'm equally excited, maybe even a tiny bit more so, for those who don't yet know what they're about to experience. Because these poems are complex inventions of image and sound. I first encountered Wahmanholm's work a few years ago after a friend hand-sold Meltwater to me on the floor of a chaotic conference book fair. He wasn't working for anyone. It was all very, very unofficial. He just picked it up, put it in my hands, and said, "You need this." How wonderfully efficient to have all of you here to pass this on to you. You need this. We need this. So much in this book spoke to me immediately and urgently. Like Wahmanholm, I am also a parent in this time where environmental catastrophes keep coming and show no signs of stopping. And painfully, few leaders are willing or able to help us try. Her poem, "You Will Soon Enter a Land Where Everything Will Try to Kill You," carefully illustrates the experience of bringing children into a natural world that can't ensure their safety. Addressing a child still in utero, the speaker of this poem says, "I am about to set my heart down into a wild burrow." And the anxiety of that experience was instantly recognizable. In Meltwater, children are everywhere, vulnerable, curious, and set to inherit the effects of a volatile climate. One of the many marvels of these poems is that they don't seek to conceal hard truth from the next generation. There's a moment in one of several poems called Glacier that describes climate change as how you can't take the blue out of the white paint. A heartbreaking moment that's viscerally understandable to anyone trying to explain to a young person how we got here. But lucky us that we're about to hear the spellcraft of her inventive formal work, pieces that meditate and ruminate on the sounds of single letters, abecedarians, one of my favorite forms, capacious and delightfully gnarly, using the order of the alphabet to score its music, and works of erasure whose once abundant stores of source text words diminish, mirroring the loss of glacial ice in a volatile climate. In the words of poet Monica Yun, Wahmanholm is a visionary of the concrete, and these poems are unmistakably of the world, of climate and habitat. At the same time, though, they venture into imaginative visions of the future, where we form crowds around hunks of glacial ice separated from us by velvet ropes, or glimpse an alternate world without children, seemingly insulated from the vulnerability entwined with caregiving. These poems are forthright, brave works that ask us to envision different futures, and allow us to ask ourselves how we want to respond. Please join me in welcoming Claire Wahmanholm.
And that was so nice. Thank you. It's weird that there's a big empty. I mean, that's fine if you all wanna, but don't let me stop you from sitting way in the back. It's delightful to be here. Thanks for having me. It's been all fun. It's been all fun so far. It's been like 20 years since I've been to this part of the country, and so it's fun to be back. Your botanical gardens are a dream. I saw a frog in there, and that was also a little surreal. The art museum is excellent. I hope you guys are happy here, right? I feel like you should be. I bet it's even better when it's green and springy. I mentioned to my husband that I was doing a workshop up at the McLeish Field Station. He was like, oh, like Archibald MacLeish? And I was like, no, Dan, obviously not. Don't be stupid. Because we're from part of the country where just because you hear a famous name, it's not about the famous person. But here, who's the idiot now? It turns out it is named after him. So that's surprise. Cool, so I'm gonna give you all a little tour of Meltwater primarily, and then I'll read some new guys. The next book, maybe you can help me with the title too. I think I was gonna call it Cosmorama, which is kind of funny. And the poems are kind of wacky and flamboyant, and so I thought that might fit. But I don't know, you'll hear them and then you can be like, I have notes for you. Don't call it that. I have until December 31st to decide, so help me out. But I'll start with Meltwater, and I'll start with the, is this my copy? Yeah. No, I know, because, no, that's great, I can tell because I took mine, I did a reading in a sauna, which is what you do in Minnesota. They have like sauna readings. There was like an event sauna and it was a poetry reading. And so my book is like, they were like, don't take your actual book in there, it'll ruin the binding. And I was like, you don't know. But I did take it in there and it did ruin the binding. So that's how I knew that this was my book. Okay, this one's called O. Once there was an opening, an operation, out of which oared the ocean, then oyster and oyster catcher, opal and opal-crowned tanager. From ornateness came the ornate flycatcher, an ornate fruit dove. From oil, the oil bird. O is for opus, the Orphean warbler's octaves, the oratorio of orioles. O for the osprey's ostentation, the owl and its collection of ossicles. In October's ochre, the orchard is overgrown with orange and olive, oleander and oxlip. Ovals of dew on the oat grass. O for obsidian, onyx, or for boreholes like inverted obelisks. O for the onion's concentric O's, observable only when cut, for the opium oozing from the poppy's globe only when scored. O for our organs, for the os of the cervix, the double O's of the ovaries plotted on the body's plane to mark the origin. O is the orbit that cradles the eye. The oculus opens an O to the sky, where the starry outlines of men float like bubbles between us and oblivion. Once there were oarfish, opal eyes, olive flounders. Once the oxbows were not overrun with nitrogen. O for the mussels opening in the ocean's oven. O for the rising ozone, the dropping oxygen, for algae overblooming like an omen or an oracle. O earth, outgunned and outmanned. O who has made orphans of our hands. And I don't think people are following along in the book, which is great because I cut out the penultimate line. This piece was set to music by a really good composer. She's a Canadian composer named Vivian Fung, and she was kind of doing the scoring to this, and she just like could not figure out. She's like, I don't know about these last couple lines. The original was, O earth outgunned and outmanned, O who holds the void inside itself, O who has made orphans of our hands. And she's like, it doesn't really fit rhythmically. Can I just cut the line? I was like, yeah, and I'm gonna cut it for real too. I told you now, the jig is up, but I did cut that line because I think she was right. Sometimes you need other people to be like, not that line. So that was great. So the background for Meltwater is that I started writing this book when I was about 7 months pregnant with my second child and finished it when she was a little over a year old. So it was written pretty fast in about like 18 months between early 2019, and I guess mid-2020. So if we throw ourselves back in time, why would you? But we're gonna. This is like the poems are spanning the last year of Trump's first presidency, the first 6 months of the pandemic, and kind of the uprising in Minneapolis after the murder of George Floyd. Australia had that terrible bushfire season, right? We saw all the pictures of like the dead koalas. There were bonkers wildfires on the West Coast, and we see the like pictures of like the orange air, this orange skies. We see those every year now, but we didn't used to see those. That was like one of the first years that was happening. Anyway, bad air quality started coming through Minnesota. Anyway, I was thinking of all the ways that my kids are going to grow up in such a different environment than I did. And so the book was sort of broadly a thinking through of like the choice to bring children into this world, knowing what I know about it, and looking at the violence and terrorism and eco-catastrophe and fascism, being like, yes, I'm still like, yes, there is enough here anyway, and I don't regret it, and I would do it again. So that's sort of what is happening in the book, and it moves chronologically from thinking about having the child to then carrying the child, and then the child being out in the world, and how the speaker, me, sort of works with that. So this is another one from early on in the book. It's called "In a Land Where Everything is Already Trying to Kill Me, I Enter a New Phase of My Life in Which It Would Be Very Bad If I Died." And it's self-explanatory. Because now there is a child, and her mother is burning with rapture and terror and has my eyes and teeth. She's parasite, doppelganger, and I would die if she unmothered me. She holds my breath as I pass a speeding truck. She holds my breath when we see a mother duck and a duckling that would not know if she died. We are not that kind. Our kind keens for a long time, and the sadness accumulates in our bodies like lead or tapeworm eggs. I feel sorry for all of us, the leaving and the left. Everything is bearing down, bearing down. For bereft make a tearing sound, which is different from a tearing sound, which is made behind the face instead of at the base of the throat. I hold my breath so I can't choke to death. A child watches me not eat my sandwich. It is my child. It is my own watchfulness. We are the same kind. The sandwich is stale. We stare at it balefully. It would be kind of the world to let us live in it until we were tired, until it is stale and unpleasurable. But that is called heaven, not world. Once I am dead, I won't know, but that doesn't help. I already miss living, all its bells and tulips and feelings. There is maybe death, and there is death, and that's all. I will spend the rest of my life maybe dying until I actually do. I have practiced and practiced. I have tried to drive out the sugar that attracts the sadness, but the mother in me has fallen in love with everything. I want to tell her to shut her eyes, to keep her hands in her pockets, but she must hold the child's hand as she crosses the street. She must eat if she wants to see the child, which is better than eating. I have not left her any white stones to follow out of this forest. There is only the sweet, dangerous darkness and the fire at the end of it. So early parenthood years are like deeply scary and terrifying, and my like anxiety levels were cranked to 11. But my tenderness levels also were, like I didn't know I could love things so much. And so this next one, okay, we're gonna do the fun thing with the mic that I said would not be a problem. Wait. Is it gonna work? Okay, that's cool. Okay, do we want the lights down a little? Is that possible in here? Who knows a thing about the lights? Can you guys, I mean, if you can see in the back, then cool. It's fine. It's not worth it to, got lights in my face now. Cool, okay.
Okay, yeah, leave it.
Maybe that's a little better? Even better, huh? Okay, cool. This one's called Glossary of What I'll Miss. I'm putting it up here because it's an abecedarian, and abecedarians are a form that are totally wasted if you just read them out loud because you can't see about the line breaks. And so an abecedarian, I know most of you know what that is, but it's a 26-line poem, and every line starts with the next letter of the alphabet. But this one is also a reverse abecedarian. along the right-hand margin, so every letter, every line ends with, it goes backwards too. So it goes A, Z, B, Y, etc. If you're counting, I cheated on Q, because it's really hard to find a word in English that ends with just Q. So it's a K sound, but, you know. Close enough. Glossary of what I'll miss. Autumn, always. The buzz by which we know the katydid and the fly. Coral accumulating its slow colonies, the flax darting bluely through the meadow. Every evening, the valley is a V filled with amethyst heat. I was once full of you, girl who will someday be ghost, heart that hurts and hurts. I was once an unscarred peach. But terror jigsawed my edges until I was sticky as burdock kernels, clinging to the burlap legs of every passing catastrophe. Moons ago, magnolias and jasmine meant swoon, not imagine a life without them. Orange weavers didn't always trail plumes of their own vanishing through the dusk. Q is for quiet rooms swelling into disquiet. J reminds me that by June, the year is already hemisphered, a deflating balloon. My own march trills somewhere in the field behind me, its song unraveling. Even you are made of vanishing, new as you are. Waves of your cells have already died, Xeroxed themselves, and died again. Such magic yields fewer and fewer miracles. I'll miss the lamb zealously. You, the autumn-blooming sweet pea. And then I'll come back to that. Oh, I'm gonna make you turn the lights on. We're gonna go back and forth. It's gonna be. This is a little TED talky. This is kind of fun. The next one I'll read is called P, and it's part of the same alphabet sequence that O is from. I started these kind of alliterative poems after my first kid was born, and we were reading a lot of like alphabet poems to kids because that's how you introduce them to the world. And I was like, but what would a contemporary, like, you know, A is for apple, B is for, you know, ball, or C is for cat, sure, but like if we were going to be honest and like a little grimmer, what might a contemporary alphabet look like? And sometimes it's like horrifying. You wouldn't want to read those. Oh, I see kids in the audience. Oh boy. But this one is called P, and it's about plastic. And even if you're not a parent, you just know there's so much shit. There's just like plastic stuff everywhere. All the gifts you get, like you come home from birthday parties and it's like a plastic thing wrapped in a plastic thing in a plastic bag. Anyway. Did I turn off? Am I talking from two mics? Oh, you're right. Has that been weird, guys? Have you noticed? Okay, but you noticed because you can hear it. God, okay. I don't know where to put it now. Yeah, no, I don't need to have two. That's fine. I guess I'll just handle one. You might know there are these books called like Indestructibles, and there's one of them in here that you'll hear. This one's titled Plip Plop Pond, but there are a bunch of them, and you can take them in the bath. The kids can like chew on them. They can like throw them out the window, and the idea is they're indestructible because all the pages are made of plastic. The whole book is a plastic book. Yeah, so that's fun. P. P is for picture book. The pillow at our backs, my daughter in her Peppa Pig pajamas. P is for peace, and peace lily and peace rose, for peekaboo and this little piggy. I open Plip Plop Pond's flash-spun polyethylene pages and point to the polywogs and lily pads. Let P not be for the Permian Basin and its pipelines and petrochemical plants. Let the phosphorus not proliferate, the pH not plunge. I flip to Paddington, perched politely outside the lost property office, and try not to picture the cruise ships pumping sewage into Peruvian ports. But P is for plague ship. P is for Point Nemo, where deprogrammed spacecraft pinwheel into smaller and smaller rain, pepper the waves with paint chips. Around it, the garbage patch pearls its plastics into pieces smaller than plum pits, smaller than pixels, pinpricks, plankton. P is for plastic, more permanent than permafrost. I open each peach pear plum to spy it hidden in the ptarmigan, the pheasant, in the phthalo blue of the Portuguese man-o'-war. I read The Princess and the Pea and feel the pellets in each layer of the ocean. epipelagic, mesopelagic, past where light penetrates into the bathypelagic, abyssopelagic, where scientists have found polyester in the molten putty between the Pacific and Philippine plates. P is for the pontoons of Polar Spring, Propel, and Panama Blue. I sing Baby Beluga and see pods of pilot whales with pool floaties pretzeled inside their pelvic cavities. I turn the page, but it's a palindrome of panic. The petrel preens petroleum from its plumage. The propeller pulps the back of the porpoise. The pressure on my windpipe will not unwrap itself. My daughter has slipped into sleep. I place her outside my arms parenthesis so she can't feel my pulse pounding. P is for parachute, I whisper. P is for pearl, penicillin, picnic, planetarium, platypus, plink, the pocket-sized pipistrelle, the ponderosa and its pine beetles. I turn up the pink noise on her sound machine so she can't hear that P is also the end of chirp, tulip, kelp, scallop, ice cap, sleep. So the book is anchored by two main sequences that formally look very different from each other. One is a set of 4 prose poems. You know what a prose poem looks like, so I'm not going to put it up there. And they were like really chunky and compressed on the page, and they're all called Glacier. And then the other sequence is a set of 8. The technical term is erasures. That's not my favorite term. Maybe I will talk about that a little bit later. I don't really like that word, and it's not really reflective of what I'm doing with those poems, but essentially 8 erasures of a single article by Lacey M. Johnson that she wrote back in 2019 called How to Mourn a Glacier. And, all right, here we go. Yeah, it'll go, maybe. I should just do all of these while I'm standing right here. Maybe. It's not, I won't need it until the very end. You can picture, aha, okay. It's just a classic idiot plot up here. Okay, did we? Okay, anyway, all right, so you know, this is like, you know what an article looks like. That's what this is. This is what her original one looked like. And then it's not very long. And then I just copied it into a Word doc and then kind of bolded the words that I wanted to sort of highlight and point up. And then I just erased them, or just whited them out, rather, so that, I mean, you should sort of be able to see, they should match up about like that. So it looks, those Meltwater poems look, can go way out, and they sort of look like this on the page, the way you might expect an erasure to look. But I'm going to read, I can leave that up there while I read. I'm going to read 2 of the Glacier poems first, because those were written earlier in the sequence. Turn it off so I'm not talking into 2 mics at a time. Okay. Yeah, I'll read the first one and then I'll read the second one and then. And in the world of these poems, it's like set in a quasi-speculative kind of future world where there are only like 4 glaciers left, ever. And they're either in like art museums or they're like locked in like vaults, like the Svalbard seed vault kind of thing, or you can kind of pay for like kind of crass commercial experiences for like glacial tourism, and you can kind of get an up-close encounter with them. So this like follows a set of people, or you know, as they try to tick all these glaciers off their list. Glacier. 0 degrees. We signed waivers agreeing to keep our mouths closed. No yawning, which would raise the temperature of the vault. No coughing. I imagined ice cream, ice water, icicles in my throat. I tried to slow my heart rate by imagining waves on the open ocean, the energy orbiting deeply through a packet of water before setting it down again. The walls of the vault were curved like a planetarium's, holding together a sky so blue and bright it was depthless, yearless. The bergs were so blue and bright they looked like raspberry shave ice. They sat behind bomb-proof glass, cored and carved down to their frozen hearts. I wanted to fill my eyes with them. I wanted to be solemn and surprised by how easy that was, how small and neat they were on their velvet-draped pedestals, grouped by country of extraction. Each was named for the first man to put his boots on it. Hubbard, Moreno, Franz Joseph, Lambert. A wave rose and sank on the ocean. I tried to let these facts build something useful and sad in my brain, but everything was a slush of anxiety. Like reading about wars, the hostile parties, the early invasions, the dates bleeding and bleeding into each other. Everything was made of the same material, the same pressure, crest and trough. Even now we were in a war I didn't know the name of. Even now bombs were falling above ground. It made sense for us to be hiding down here together. The placards mentioned repatriation, but I knew that when it was over, we would not be reunited with our pillaged, melted bodies. A glass of water will not freeze around an ice cube. The bird calls looped and looped. The artificial pine mist stung my eyes, but I kept them open. I imagined waves on the ocean. Maybe we should be renamed for the first things our eyes touched when we resurfaced. Snowdrop, reindeer moss, fjord. I wanted to be ready for whatever was left of the world. And this is the last one. By the time they get to this one, spoiler, it's melted. This one's already gone. Glacier. It is everywhere. It is the water I am trying to teach my daughters to float in. It is the sky I tell them to keep their eyes on. It is the air I tell them to seal in their mouths should they slip underwater. I am a leaky boat, but I am trying to answer their questions. As deep as 30 Christmas trees, as deep as 20 giraffes standing on each other's backs. There hasn't been a sea here for 75 million years. I cannot explain that number. My daughter's ankles are sinking into the barrel water. No one can float forever. On the map, pushpins skewer patches of icy green like rare moths. I am trying to say it's too late without making them too sad. It's like how you can't take the blue out of the white paint, like how you can't hear your name and not turn around. The calving of glaciers is the loudest underwater sound on Earth. I dip my daughter's ears beneath the surface to let them listen. It's like how you can't put a feather back on a bird, like how the bird won't fit back into its shell. We step backward into the house. I wring the glacier out of their suits. I wring it out of their hair. I wipe it from their faces, but it is everywhere. It is the storm. It is the drowned harbor. It is the current. It is the bathwater that the baby slurps before we can stop her. The horizon rises. It rains. The glacier hammers the roof. The glacier soaks a corner of the bedroom ceiling, which greens with spores. On the map, the pushpins hover over green air. The green air is a spreading shroud. The storm surges ashore, mercurial and summer-smelling. We are not accustomed to the sea, so we describe it like a sky. The waves are tornado green and loud. In the water, the polar bears look like clouds. I think, okay, and that's still up. We don't have to do more stuff with the technology. I'll read a couple of the meltwater erasures. So the glaciers came first. I think there were going to be 5 prose poems, but for the 5th one, I was like, I found this article in the meantime, and I was like, what if the 5th poem is actually an erasure of this article? That might be kind of a neat thing. But when I went to the article and kind of lifted one set of words from it, it felt insufficient. I was like, I can go back and do more. It's kind of like cutting dough, and you can always roll it out and cut more, and then roll it out again and cut more. Although things, you have less and less to work with as you go, which was sort of, so I think I did 8 of these. And the pool of words that I was able to draw from got less and less as the project went on. So I'll read one. I think I'm reading this one actually. I'll scroll through it. Kind of from the beginning of the sequence, and then a couple from the end. So one should sound like much longer, and they should sound much shorter. So let's try. Let's do this. And the glacier's name. This is a kind of ruins it. Okay, that's okay. How to mourn a glacier. The glacier she's talking about is Öxjökull Glacier in Iceland, and obviously the name of it starts with O, but I tried to preserve the name kind of in there as much as possible, so there are a lot of O's in this poem. Meltwater. Ice stretches between us and history. Oh, slushy shadow, oh, long gray rain that floods the ice with memory. The water of the future followed us. No arc appeared, no spell of unmaking. Time is a land of lies. We stumble between glaciers and memory and try to explain our path. Oh, uncommonly sunny death that brightened the summer snow. The melting point of ice is empire. Formed by dust, we are baptized in concrete and our own acceleration. It trickled down to the future in gray statistics. Oh, child, the meltwater was so deep. I'm over here for the other ones, just because I miss walking back and forth a little bit. Meltwater. O world, from Antarctica to the Siberian Sea. O eastern mountainsides, O road through gray ice. O cold nest in a black field, O ice cap in the shape of all the lessons we wanted to learn, but didn't. O moss on the boulder surrounded by excessive summer. O ship across the deep. And then here are a couple from the end. Meltwater. Long is the name of the century. Small is a child inside of it. On the black earth, some say memory is the most distressing thing. We scramble into the crater of its silence. Meltwater. An early morning. Child, you are a memorial at the site of our story. On the black earth, I say we are the most irreversible thing. So those are some of those guys. How are we doing? We okay? Yeah? Do we want to do the new, let's do the new book. Should we do the new book? That's fun. Let's do the new book. No, I'm going to be all over here now. Yeah, now there's going to be more. The jam, well, maybe so the jam with the next book, no, I'm going to TED Talk it a little bit. The next book is if we are living in a world that, for now at least, is characterized by more restriction than the last 10 years have seen, for now. If we are less free than we have been, if we have less access to water, less access to movement, if we are increasingly surveilled, for now, because I don't feel like accepting that as a new reality permanently. I'm not capitulating to that, but for now, that's the reality. And so when I was writing I was kind of writing my way through that sense of restriction without feeling cynical or passive or despairing. And I was like, okay, is it still possible to live a human and humane life? Is it still possible to do beautiful things? Is it still possible to live meaningfully? Yes, yes. And the way I tried to work through that in the poems was through putting a lot of formal restrictions on myself, layering, so a sonnet that's also an a double abecedarian, or terza rima that's also an abecedarian, or layering forms, oh, can you do something interesting now? Add another thing. Can you still breathe? Can you add another thing? Can you still do something beautiful? Yes, yes. And so writing those poems kind of approximated a spiritual practice for me in some ways. You don't really see it necessarily. That's a process thing, not a product thing. But, so we're back to abecedarians. And this one, I was like, oh, the letters at the front of the line are fine, but I was missing working with the end of a line. So I put the alphabetical words at the end, but also alternated them. So it goes Z-A, Y-B, X-C, W-D. And because you're finally working with the ends of lines again, you can rhyme. So I also had them rhyme. This one's called Diorama. You can't include everything. Even the zygote can only be glanced at in order to fit the agate, the rainforest, the picture frame, the yolk of the robin's egg dripping from the blue jay's beak. Abundance is fine, but I'm trying to be a xeriscape. I'm going for less. Less dahlia pomp, less of the crepe myrtle's messy lushness. I'm swearing off water, but only its wetness. I'll keep its rhyme with daughter. I'll keep the sound of it hitting the sea, its voice so vivid it's green. I didn't erase what doesn't appear, but I still feel uneasy, as if the leaf were insufficiently gold, the fleecy cloud not enough like a lamb to pass the test. I promise it isn't a test. Plus, when I hear it glossed over, I also know gossamer, tongue, dew, lacquer, sphere, click, glimmer, lip, glow, globe. It's all here in the smallest room of the dollhouse. The razor cuts for real, the water runs, the doll child's incisor gleams with spit on the hand-stitched quilt. The fact that I will not have more children used to jolt me, but not anymore. Now it is a slower pain, like being dragged home by the wrist. At his kin wherever never lives. That's where I'm going. But I'll open the blinds and through the frame see everything. Line after line of lupins, indigo, wet leaves, nasturtiums, the cold that always comes, the last of the autumn mums. Okay, this one's fun. This one's called Terror Machine. It's as fun as it sounds. It was like more it's all abecedarians from here on out. That's all I'm doing. Surprise. But this poem started out as a kind of an anxious thing I was doing with my brain, where I was making an alphabetical list of all the ways I was afraid to die, which is my jam. Like, that's what a lot of my poems do. And it was like kind of anxious and obsessive, and I kind of got through the poem and was like, well, I guess I'll be okay with that. But I ended at the Z, and I was like, ugh, that feels bad. Like, that's not the brain I want to be living with. That's not really what I want the poem to be about. Do I erase the poem and start over? Do I just like rewrite the poem? But I wanted there to be a record of me changing my mind and doing something else. And so I went back, I kept it at the Z, but then wrote it back outwards. So it ends with A again. So we're all just back where we started, which is maybe the most we can ever sort of hope for. But it's indented in a weird way, but you can see it's still an abecedarian, it's just sneaky. Terror Machine. Alone, at work, at the mall, with my throat bitten out and throbbing between some dog's teeth. Cartoonishly by jubilant clanging piano, tumbling down my own basement stairs, dehydrated by doubt, empty as a drought, popped to pulp in the ocean's fist, in front of my children by any size of fire, gutted by grief, gutted for real, hungover from living but still hanging on, by the sloppy incision, the thread slipping in the intestine, the uterus, the brain, in my favorite jeans, in July, jammed into the mouth of a machine, knowing it gets worse, knowing it gets better, having learned nothing, having seen too much, having not seen Montreal, but still believing in spells, believing somehow that now that I've said these deaths out loud, they are impossible. On my knees, pointing at the rising water, on my feet, pointing at the falling sky, on my sides, scratching at quarantine's door one final time. Give me a second, give me any reason besides, why not? Taloned by surprise like a shrew spotlit upon the morning snow, thinking up until the last moment that maybe the rules are not universal, that the universe decided something was worth swerving for just this once. Violets, Venus winking like a Valentine in the sky, why not me? Isn't my weeping exceptional? Isn't my sorrow the best violin? It exists, the perfect death, but I would have to say yes to it when it comes, and I'm only good at the small things, zoos, cotton candy, staying up late. My children have learned that 0 is more a midpoint than an end, that the negative world yields as many numbers as the positive, that time occupies the x-axis as much as the y. Their amazement has doubled their worlds, as their existence has padded mine with more velvet, more volume, more ocean, more thorn, more unworthiness. No one deserves the death they want in this particular world, where things just happen and happen senselessly. No one deserves anything. There are no rules here, and that is what scares me. That is what makes me quiver at the lip of open manholes at the mention of ordinary petrochemicals. But hey, I promise to stop resisting, to stop opening my books and cutting out the ends. It's true, I have never lived like I had a long life ahead of me, but I wanted more life and I got it, ×2. I have already been saved, so let me act like it. Let me lick the lucky stamps and press their kisses to everything. The fact that fruit can become jam and therefore last for months in a jar, that therefore I can eat peaches in March, that peaches and I are here together. Is this what we trade for death? Because God, I don't want either of us to end. I tried to trick that feeling away, but the ache is back. I can't empty myself like that. Even though it would free me, even though it would make death easier, I must love that ache more than fear. I must not care. I love to love things, so there. When I began, I thought it would be just me and terror in the room. But we have never been alone. I have been wrong about almost everything. Okay, last one. Last one. That's cool, right? So in my quest to keep trying to make my life harder, and like I love an abecedarian, I don't have to tell you why. I mean, I could tell you why. I probably will at some point. But one of the limitations about this form is that once you know how to do them, they get a little shallow. It's like, oh, you've used the letter once and then you're moving on to the next letter already. Wouldn't it be nice if you could kind of crack open each letter and spend more time and kind of slow it down and spend more time with the letter, but still do the alphabet, still have that? Yes, you can. You can do it with vowels. That is the only thing you can do it with. So the first letter is all O or A or I or E. You can't do it with U. And then the second letter is the alphabet letter. Yeah, right? Fun. It's a cool form, and it's exhausting. These are really hard to write, I gotta say. You gotta do a lot of research, but they're very cool. O machine, beauties. Oh, yeah. I know, that seems intimidating, doesn't it? I get it. That's how I feel. Oak beauties, oak ferns, oak moss, a field of oats backlit by late oblique light. The rainbow pinwheels caused by a blow to the right occipital lobe. Rainbow, 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 that earnestness closing that ode to restraint. Window names, oriole, jalousie, eyebrow, lancet, oeil de boeuf, rose. Don't even get me started on the rococo names of those. Aphrodite, Belvedere, canary bird, cerise bouquet, Dublin Bay, Tuscany superb, amber queen, Albertine, golden beauty, gloire de France, bridge of sighs, ogive, lunette. The elegance of signs, the efficiency of omega symbolizing ohms, the density of the universe, and any version of the end. Oil shredding its neon threads into the water, the reconstruction of Ophoraptosaurus from a single broken pubic bone. Maybe not a single ochre pod, but certainly its cross-section. Maybe not the thing itself, but a listolith as a gallop of syllables, kicking up pebbles that hiss past your ear. Ombre anything. Who doesn't love the soft eternal fade between once there was and now and there will be? I'm still easing in, still learning names for blue. Uo cyan, the wan aqua shade of bird eggs, or smalt, knockoff ultramarine. Optimistically, I have 50 years to see the mountain ranges I've never seen. Ochres, Andes, superstitions, Kunluns, rubies, Apennines. In comparison, Orchid Claire might have another 60, Orchid Claire another 45. My ostrich self would be approaching death. I've already twice outlived Otter Me, though she was certainly happier, buoyed by her dense outer coat and also her general unawareness of time. Sorry, I've been overtaken by death again. I've lost the thread. I thought I could use owl-light gloaming eventide to stitch my panic closed. Here we go. Oxbows, that small clutch of salt beneath the tongue when eating oysters, the fact that hunger is the first sense to go, and mine is still rising, like ozone, like wood smoke, like eucalyptus groves, the smell of all those roses. Thanks, gang.
That's really great.
working. Not yet. Hey, there we go. Okay, everything's working.
Hello.
Doing exactly what
Ooh,
it should. See?
amazing.
Going.
Thank you so much,
Yeah, that
Claire.
was
That
fun.
was just, I mean, it was a delight, the most delightful TED Talk I've ever been to.
Thank you. Me too.
But really, like the energy of having a reading that sort of like goes outside of the constraints of
Chaotic
your,
energy.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's so much fun. I appreciate it so much. So yeah, I have a couple questions. I want to get an eye on the clock so I don't like go crazy.
Yeah, well, I probably spent a long time running back and forth and doing all the, sorry. Yeah.
No, we appreciate it. Um, so yeah, I have a couple of questions. There are a lot of things about form, obviously, in, not just this book. It feels like it's something that animates your writing overall, like from the early poems of Wilder, down through Meltwater. It just like these things are consistent. Um, I I do want to ask about abecedarians, and I will ask about abecedarians, but I wanted to start first with thoughts on treating text. Like it really stuck out when you said that erasure was not your preferred term, and I, I obviously that's so interesting. I'd like you to talk a bit about like your strategies, like why do you like to engage with a text this way? What does it mean to you when you have a text and then you start altering it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think most people when they tackle erasures, they often have like a confrontational relationship with the text. They're erasing something heinous or something that's offensive or something that is like a problem in some way, and then erasing it becomes like, yes, I'm getting rid of this text, and this is an act of like power and reclaiming, and like that's, I think most people do that, and that's great, that's their jam. And my ministry is I only I like to see it less as like erasure because connotatively that's got problems, and more like a close reading or like a highlighting or like where you're kind of turning the dimmer switch or like kind of spotlighting things on the text differently. So it's just like a shift in attention rather than like erasing text. And so I only do erase. I have erasures in erasures. Again, there's not like there's not a
Yeah.
clunky a close reading. It's not really because that's so academic. Anyway, if anyone thinks of a cool word for that, LMK. I only work with texts that I love, that like I have a lot of admiration for, that have strong voices and rich vocabularies. I have like a whole set of Carl Sagan, because like who doesn't love Carl Sagan? Like I'm not erased, like how dare I? But like in Wilder, there's a whole set of Cosmos erasures in there too. And part of what you don't necessarily see on the page is like just the process of looking through a text. And for like Lacey M. Johnson's, I think it's like 8. I think I did it like 8 times. Like I knew that text so well by the time I had finished the pieces. Just like reading it, it was like an intimate. It was like like an act of care on the text, right? Versus like something antagonistic. And that doesn't necessarily come out on the page, but it's more like a process sort of thing. And it's like it's like a little bit of praying, right? Which is like heightened attention. It felt like that kind of thing. And so for Meltwater, I mean for the Meltwater sequence in general, I thought it might be useful to have this like text that slowly, like larger chunks of it kind of disappear into the white space, as you know, so like metaphorically. I don't have to spell that out for you, with like the glacier melt and whatnot. So that felt like an intuitive choice for this particular book. Yeah, in that way.
I appreciate how iterative the process is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you are returning to this stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
I think in some ways there are the anxieties that are present throughout the entire book, but there's also that sense of like you just live with it. Like so to have it diminish like that is really interesting. The thinking about other modes of form, like yes, the abecedarians, your poems where you are meditating on a single letter and just taking those sounds, and what I mean, how does a poem like that start for you? Are you encountering the sound naturally? Is it, I mean, especially when you have younger people in your life
Mhm.
who are just learning language, I feel like our attention to these things gets to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, what are these sounds that you're making? Why these sounds?
Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah.
Where does a poem like that start for you?
Yeah. And it is, yeah, I hadn't put that together before, but like having, like experiencing the world through the eyes of someone who hasn't experienced the world before
Yeah.
does make everything seem very alien. Like language, like, oh, these sounds are all arbitrary. These words are all made up. None of this is like you start to get some, and the sleep deprivation doesn't help with
Oh my
that,
God,
but like
no.
there is this like sense of like surreality that you wouldn't get normally. Like, what is a tree? Anyway, but like so some of the like obsession with like the individual letters and like there's like semantic satiety, right? Like if you say sounds too many times, like, oh, none of it is meaningless, like
Yeah.
that happens a little bit.
Yeah. Lemon, lemon, lemon,
Lemon
lemon.
you're like,
Yeah,
that's not
totally.
not real. But these poems require, I mean, I like that you call them like meditations when actually like so much of them have to come from outside of my brain. Like I can come up with some of these words like in the like 75%. I mean, there are some, but there are like I had to do a lot of research for those, and I love doing research because it takes me out of my brain, actually, because my brain is often like anxious, and I don't need to be that. Like I would prefer. My brain is pretty sure that it knows the endings to stories, and it knows how things are going to go, and it's very easy to get my brain to despair, which is a terrible superpower to have. But so like doing research and like flooding myself with things I don't know helps so much. Just like reminds me about how big the world is and how much there's still to learn from it, and how like we don't know anything really. And so those are really, really research driven. For like the individual letter poems, I'll like go through the OED and make like a list of like interesting words in a Word doc, and it's like 10 pages in a Word doc. And so it takes a lot of time. I wouldn't recommend it. And then
much
from
fun.
there, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like pull out words that might seem interesting, but then the process becomes like, oh, how can you take this kind of random set of 100 words and make them go together and make them make sense? It's like a very democratic process, actually. Like, oh, there's room for like art history and astronomy and like soil science and celebrities all in a poem. Like everything fits. There's room for everything, which is kind of a nice affirming thing to feel when you're pretty sure everything is shit, right?
Yeah, I mean that spirit of like maximalist play is so
Minimalist, I like that, yeah,
appealing
yeah.
to me. Like sometimes I wake up in the morning and I think I am going to write a short poem. It is going to be just the barest
Yeah,
vessel
yeah.
of the thing it needs to do, and then I'm like, but everything else is
Yeah,
there.
but why not make it longer? Make it 10
Yeah,
times as long.
please.
Well, never stop. Yeah, yeah.
And like I really think you get to the joy of practicing in that way. I had a question. It was sort of like, oh, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. Because you said something about being like distracted away from knowing the ending of a thing. And I feel like that is such a huge part of our practice as poets. Like we can have a sense of what we're going to write about, but like I don't know. I'm not going to actually make you read this other poem.
Oh, yeah.
You have this poem that ends with this factual line of the amount of like highway miles
Yeah.
there are in America, and I wonder like how does a fact like that land in a poem? How does it generate the poem? Are you traveling back and forth between knowing and not knowing? Especially like where it's going to land.
Yeah, that's a great question. Ooh, because I
No,
do
it's
think
hard.
I do think poetry is very good at like middles,
Yeah.
right? Or I don't know. Like I don't write fiction. I could never. Like beginnings and ends of stories.
I'm so
Plot.
jealous of fiction writers.
Yeah, right. Characters, no thank.
Yeah.
Like I don't. Mm-mm. But
Yeah.
I think poetry is very good at middles, at like what is, and maybe like what we don't know the ends. Like I don't know. I feel
Mhm.
like for some reason I feel like that's a generic. I think I can say about genre, and maybe no one's gonna stop me. I don't know if that's even true. But so I always I do kind of prefer Like when I don't really know, even though I write a lot of abecedarians, like, oh, you know where they're gonna end, it's with Z. I still don't usually like to know exactly where it's ending. So I think for the poem you're talking about, which, right, it's on the screen. I won't make anyone do the screen again. I forgot that it is there. Most of it was, I went to this lovely residency in Ragdale, or it's called Ragdale, but it's in Lake Forest, Illinois, and it backs up. It's like this beautiful nature, this like meadow, and it has like it was in May with all these birds were out there, and so with my Merlin app constantly, like listening for birds because that's my jam, and you can like watch the everyone has Merlin. Yeah. You can watch that and you can see like the noise happening. And there was always this like low-lying like gray fuzz along the recording. And I was like, what is that after a couple days? And I looked at the map of where I was and like, oh, there's a highway right behind the preserve that you can't see it. But you could always, like it was there on the back of all of my recordings. And so in that case, like I had like made this, I was like, oh, I'm gonna write a poem, like it's gonna have all these birds in it. But that highway, like that kept being interrupted by the idea of the highway or like the noise of the highway. And so in that particular case, I wanted the highway to like sort of insinuate itself into the poem, but really like have that hard fact kind of be the end. Because eventually it just like became so hard to try to hear birds. Like the highway did kind of end my like experience, so I wanted that to kind of close. But usually I don't know where a poem is gonna end until it kind of sneaks up on me.
It's so like that poem in particular, this is so funny, and this is only because my folks are right here in the audience. They are probably going to remember this. It unlocked this weird, like, I found core memory of, being a kid going on a road trip, and we had, as you often do in that situation, a collision between a bird and the windshield.
Oh, yeah.
But like just thinking about how, like, that was something that after reading your poem, I was reminded of it because it no longer felt like this coincidental thing. Like it really felt inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think to have like that kind of context, like bringing this knowledge into a poem, like Matt blew my cover. I was on Jeopardy, and I love facts.
Yeah,
I love
trivia.
I also heard that you were on a trivia I listened to the trivia podcast that you were on.
Yeah.
It was so exciting.
Yeah. Do you do Learned League?
I do.
Oh my God.
This is amazing.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Not
We
right now,
won't
but we'll
talk about the questions today. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't submitted yet for today.
Yeah, okay, cool.
If anyone wants referrals, it's referral only. I have some referrals if anyone has been dying to join Learned League.
Yeah,
anyway,
come
let me
find
know.
us.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
This is the
Okay,
best.
this is the best.
But yeah, like, where am I going with this?
Sorry. Yeah, no, I derailed us.
No. I mean, having, I think sometimes there's like some hostility toward the poem that contains fact, like that it's somehow like it's trying to be this didactic machine that's like, here's a thing that you don't know and I'm going to tell it to you.
Yeah.
And like that, like one, that is not the sense I get from your like factual inclusions in poems, but also like when I am reading a poem like that, I really enjoy it. Like I feel like it's bringing something to me. Like what do you hope that your reader's coming away with when you're bringing them this information?
That's a great, I mean, I think it's like part of it is like a reminder, and I hope it does very much seem like, oh, I also just learned that 30 seconds ago because it's accurate, right? Like before I write the poem, like I did not know all these things. I specifically found them for the poem because I do really want poems to be like places where it's fun to where it's fun to not know things, right? And there's like no way anyone, I don't know, there's something, I guess I was kind of assuming this would be, I hope it came across, that like there's no way anyone could have known all these things organically, that like all of this stuff did come from somewhere else kind of spontaneously, and being like, hey, we all don't know things together, and now we all do know things together, right? Like it was sort of like a hand, like an outstretched hand, sort of being like, do you want to know stuff? Yeah, you want to know stuff? Come know stuff with me. I just found out about a thing, and now I want you to know a thing too.
Yeah.
Just like as a generous sort of, and hopefully it gestures to like, and there's so much more. Like it's an arbitrary amount of things that are in a particular poem, and there's so much more outside like the borders of the poem that just simply can't fit. And so just the idea like the world is big. The world is big. It's so big, and it keeps we're never going to know all this stuff. And that's like my favorite feeling is not knowing all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the abecedarian is like also such a perfect
Love the
container for
abecedarian.
that.
It
Like,
is.
and you talked about this a little bit, but like the ability to just range around and be like, I am going to collect all these things
Yeah, and
together,
it's
and
kind of
then
expected that you can do that.
yeah, like super fun. I I did want to ask a little bit about language in a broader sense. I know we had talked a little bit about translation
Yeah.
and what
Oh,
that might mean for your work.
yeah.
Um, and you said you had some poems
Oh, I had the
translated.
poem. I had them, and they're on the screen.
Oh,
And they're on the screen. I don't have to. There's they put. I had a kind of a buddy of mine translated the final glacier poem, the one I read, the one that starts "It is everywhere," translated into German, and then it was also featured at a festival on like climate and water and glaciers in Italy, and so they translated it into Italian too. And the differences are wild. I don't speak either of those languages fluently. I know German a little bit more than I know Italian, but it was amazing. I wish I hadn't closed the curtains. I was like, maybe someone could. Anyway, but like the German obviously sounds a little bit more in my idiom, right? Because like the language, like the structures are very similar. And the Italian, but it has all those like liquid sounds that work really well for that content, even though the sentence structures and the syntax felt like not what I would have thought for the poem. But it's like very cool to see them next to each other, and I'd like try to stumble through. I'm like, I'm very bad at reading them. I can't do it, but translation is so cool.
do
Yeah.
they still feel like your poem? Like, do you?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. Kind not. Oh, I thought I would. I thought I would be able to answer that more quickly than I can. I was gonna be like, yes, of course they do, or like, no, of course they definitely don't, because it's not my language. But I think I will say, like, when I look at the German one, it does feel more like mine, just because I think it's just the simple thing of like the syntax and a lot of the words sound more similar. But it's like a beautiful, intimate. I mean, it's probably like a little bit like the close reading. Like to translate something, you have to be like looking at that. Like that's such an act of generosity and care to translate
Yeah.
something into another language. That's incredible. Um, and it's like so touching. It just feels very intimate and like very sacred to have someone do that.
Yeah.
And so right, and so it's like it's kind of like it's mine, but it's kind of like it's hers. It's kind of yeah. It's like our weird little glacier baby. It's amazing
That's so
though.
cool.
Does it still feel like mine? I don't. It feels like it's part of something bigger now,
Yeah.
which is like all anyone could ever ask for, right? Yeah.
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 I love
Yeah.
that.
Thank you for asking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have time for like one more question?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm having trouble deciding. Two more? One more, two more?
More.
Two more? Okay.
And I won't go on and on and on.
No, no, no,
So
no.
and we can
No,
do two if I like.
that's the
if I'm
whole point of
efficient.
this.
I know, but if you let me go, I mean, don't you know?
Um, I think I'm wondering because of we were talking a little earlier about fiction and what opportunities are afforded to fiction writers in text. Thinking a little bit around genre in poems because I was just at AWP. For anyone who doesn't know it, it's a massive conference. It's like thousands of
11,000
writers.
people.
It's
huge.
mayhem. It's chaos. But you also like get so worn down that you accidentally learn things
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, it's the best way to learn.
And I feel like I kept listening to these fiction writers speaking and just speaking very easily about genre and engaging with genre. And I found myself thinking, I wish we could do this in poems. Well, I mean, at the same time, absolutely understanding we do this in poems. Maybe we just don't phrase it as such. We're not necessarily as upfront with it. But in engaging with your work, I found it really interesting that you would have these imagined narratives that show up. And I was wondering, like, what does that afford you? We think of poems as being like so like idiosyncratically personal. Like this is the thing only you can write. But like what happens when you're engaging, like you're still doing the thing only you can do, but it's maybe further outside of yourself or like the known world.
Yeah.
How does it feel to work with those kinds of genre conventions?
I hadn't, yeah, and I think maybe just because I'm a poet, like I hadn't thought about it in terms of
Yeah.
genre before, because it does seem like something we don't get to do, right? It seems like something
Right.
prose
It's
writers
not
get to do,
fair.
but right, it isn't fair. But so like I'm not quite used to thinking of it that way. But in terms of like imagine, because there are I would say like most of my like Redmouth and Will, like the earlier books are more like what if books, right? Like they're mostly speculative and dystopian and then like halfway through, like Meltwater still has a lot of what if books because early parenthood is all about like what if.
God.
But then it kind of moves into a what is voice, and I think the new stuff that I'm writing now is also more staunchly like, oh, they're what is, like what exists out in the world, what is actually happening versus what my brain is imagining. And for me, again, as someone's brain who's just like, will do what if forever, right? Like, and it will just like picture all the worst case scenarios and the ending, like all the worst endings to all the stories. And so like, it's actually a relief to be like, no, I'm not doing imagined. I'm not like, some people find imagination a refuge, not me. I don't need it. Not my own, like not my own, someone else's imagination. I'm happy to read like fiction or someone else's sort of thing, but I can't do it myself. And like
Yeah.
where my brain is best, at least like for now or whatever, is in like what is actually out there and like what exists and kind of what I can grab onto. So I think that's more like what I'm doing now is like less of the imagination or like the speculative, which is
Yeah.
different from imagination maybe. I think
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's definitely
I think
different.
they are different.
Yeah, but
But
yeah.
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 Um I think okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully quickly. Um uh, it's so hard to like think about what I'm really asking. Because in this book, I mean, I am also a parent. I'm also trying to figure out how to navigate the world that is crumbling. It's melting. Like all of those anxieties are there. A child asking, "Can I stop global warming?" And I'm
Right.
just like, ah. Um,
No, right.
but I think some poems are looking at children in this context as like an isolated thing, as like the family and how do I deal with this in my family. And I found that in your poems we're looking more out into the world, like the children of these poems. It's not just your children. And I'm wondering, like, how do those responsibilities animate these poems?
Yeah, I mean, like we've heard, I can't remember who. Someone can tell me who like originally said it, where it's like the children are all of ours, right? Like all children are all of ours, right? Like not
Yeah.
just like your immediate children, but every children are our responsibility, right? And they are the most vulnerable, like entities on the the planet, right? I mean, they're extremely vulnerable, and we're not doing a very good job of protecting them. But it's all of our responsibility, and living in like that kind of like nuclear family is just like it's destroying all of us. But I think so. I mean, you can come to these poems like if you're a parent or like your child adjacent or whatever, but also like in a deeper level, like they're poems about like being powerless, right? When you would really like to have some kind of power to protect people, or like not being able to protect what you love most in the world and like losing that or having that be taken away. And like those are things that everyone can tap into, regardless of whether you have like children in your life in one way or another. So I was wanting to, right, I try not to get too specific about like having the children be like identifiable, like
Yeah.
my children or whatever, and let them be kind of stand-ins or whatever for any big thing that we have like such like a fierce impulse to protect and like we'll see how good of a job we do, right? And like having that loss always be like just within like just beyond our reach maybe, or just unable to prevent. Anyway, you know, depending. So I was hoping it would be sort of bigger than that also. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's where we are. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see how well we do.
We'll see.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah, thank
that was
you.
great.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Those were great questions. Yeah.